Shipping authorities closed the harbour entrance this morning to all incoming vessels. Late this afternoon it was also declared off limits to all ships heading to sea. One yacht, the Ketch-Ninkia, however made a welcome approach to the port, eager to find shelter from the big seas offshore. Newcastle Harbour is also proving a popular haven for surfers. With most other beaches closed, board riders find a wave inside the breakwater. The coastal waters forecast for the next 24 hours is for swells between 2 to 4 metres. The huge seas are the result of a low pressure trough off the coast combining with cyclone Drina in the Coral Sea. The Newcastle pilot boat will inspect the bar tomorrow morning to decide whether the harbour should be reopened.
Known as the Dubbo Link, the 390-kilometre stretch is already one of the busiest transport routes in the state. The state government has now recognised its importance, declaring it a state highway. The move follows years of lobbying by local councils and pressure from economic development groups.
I think government is starting at last to listen to the business community of Newcastle and certainly in Dubbo.
A study by the Hunter Chamber of Commerce in 1993 estimated it would cost $60 million to upgrade the road. The government says it will spend $14 million this year, but stops short of putting a figure on future spending. The road will be upgraded to handle the giant B-double semi-trailers. Dubbo is increasingly the commercial and industrial hub for the west and northwest. It will mean new export opportunities through the Newcastle port and significant time and money savings for industry.
To get from Dubbo, for example, to the edge of Sydney is about the same time as it is to get into Newcastle. But unfortunately they've got to get between the edge of Sydney right through the centre of Sydney to the Port Botany, and that's probably a 3 or 4 hour haulage.
The RTA is currently assessing its priorities to decide which sections of the Golden Highway will be the first in line for major upgrading works. Phil Hind, NBN News. Just as the inquiry into the Gretley disaster gets underway, the mine is embroiled in another controversy. A mine deputy is now recovering after allegedly being assaulted underground over a safety dispute. It's claimed he was attacked for refusing to clean a coal belt while it was operating. The man is the only deputy at the mine who's not a member of the Construction, Forestry, Mining and Energy Union.
I can confirm unequivocally was not one of our members that was involved in the incident, the alleged incident at that particular mine.
The alleged assault is now being investigated by police and mines inspectors. The man at the centre of the controversy was singled out some years ago when he refused to join the union. However, his own association says that's history.
There may be some undercurrent of antagonism towards Ken, but in the past few years there's been nothing to show that.
More disturbing, according to the Colliery Officers Association, is the apparent breach of safety procedures at Gretley.
That will be brought out in the Gretley inquiry, I'm quite sure.
It's understood the man alleged to have committed the assault has denied any involvement. Phil Hind, NBN News.
The Annie Leibovitz collection is a coup for the Newcastle Art Gallery, being the only showing of the exhibition on the East Coast. It features 170 photographs covering a 20-year period from 1974 to 1994.
It's actually quite a range of photographs. Predominantly she takes portrait photographs of celebrities, as everybody knows, but there are some interesting sort of photojournalistic pictures that she took of Sarajevo and some pictures of some mountains in, I think it's Nevada, which are interesting.
It's a star-studded collection featuring portraits of well-known celebrities and faces from the big screen, including Steve Martin, Whoopi Goldberg and Jodie Foster. There are also a series of earlier black and white photos.
So the early works have a lot more, I think, sort of psychological investigation of the individual. These later celebrity works are a bit more projected public personas.
The exhibition opens tonight, with people from as far as Queensland, Canberra and Melbourne travelling to Newcastle to see the display. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
With 3 Socceroos in their backline, Adelaide City is rarely troubled in defence, but after scoring 2 goals in the same clash last week, the Breakers were looking to find the net again. A few early chances went begging for the locals. Then they were given a taste of City's attacking force. Liam Baker did well to hold out the first raid, but couldn't scramble fast enough to save the second. The Pyramid did little to enthuse the vocal home crowd. Almost 6,000 fans had come to see City entombed, so Jason Bennett dug deep. But Adelaide held on to go to the break up 1-0. 5 minutes into the second half, Liam Maguire was floored. Price made no mistakes. In the remaining 30 minutes, both sides had chances to split the deadlock. Adelaide missed a sitter, and the Breakers found it just as hard. 1-1 the final result. The teams forced to share the points. Both now have a 1-month holiday before the next Ericsson Cup round early next month.
Firemen responded to the emergency call just before 11. They arrived at the Waratah Scout Hall minutes later, but the damage had already been done. 6 units spent half an hour dousing the blaze from the ground before turntable ladders were brought in to attack from above. The fire completely gutted the building, destroying furniture and equipment used by the Scouts. Locals looked over the remains today, examining what's left of the 113-year-old building. Police believe the fire may have been deliberately lit. While firemen were battling the flames here at the Scout Hall, they received another emergency call to a blaze just blocks away. This time, fire had engulfed a dry cleaning building in Mayfield.
We found the building well alight in the front section.
The hazmat unit poured foam on flammable dry cleaning liquids, trying to reduce the toxic fumes escaping from one section of the building. It took firefighters more than an hour to put out the fire, the building suffering extensive smoke and water damage. Police arrested a 15-year-old youth from Mayfield in connection with the fire. He's been charged with break and enter, arson and a number of other offences and will appear in Warramai Children's Court tomorrow. Vanessa Spark, NBN News. This was Glenn Norton's pride and joy. A Holden Commodore he spent the last 2 years paying off.
Real upset because I used to look after it so much. It was basically nearly a brand new car.
Now all that remains is a charred skeleton, the result of a vicious fire that erupted overnight. Glenn's next-door neighbour heard a crackling noise just after 1 this morning. Flames were leaping from the downstairs car park.
The next thing, all the firemen were here and the police, and then they told us to get out of the house and run for it.
The blaze blackened the upstairs veranda and caused extensive structural damage to the end flat. Luckily, the owners were away at the time.
But if these people had been home, I don't think they would have got out.
For Glenn, his loss is a double blow. Did you lose anything else in the car?
Mr. Celine Dion tapes.
It's believed the fire may have been deliberately lit. The fire investigation unit is still sifting through the evidence. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
The Falcons signed import was in full basketball mode today, Butch Hayes leading a school holiday clinic in a Newcastle shopping centre. Most young fans did their best to impress, others didn't. Hayes spent most of the day putting pen to paper, but it's a signature of another kind the Falcons desperately need.
We're still looking for that import spot, but we're trialling guys right now.
Assistant coach Sean Dennis has been part of the search for that second import. One of the avenues they're exploring is Sac Illawarra Hawk, Andre Lafleur.
We're trialling Andre Lafleur this week to see what it'd be like to go with 3-guard rotation. And other than that, we're looking around at probably for a 6-7 3-man who can shoot the three-point shot and maybe give us a few rebounds.
The clinics continue until Thursday. Proceeds to Compassion for underprivileged kids. Meantime, the NBL has announced that next season's final series will be reduced from 8 teams to 6. While it will be harder to make the cut, the Falcons think the draw plays right into their hands.
Certainly, I mean, if you look at our record, we had just as good a record against the top teams as we did against the bottom teams, so, we're excited.
Newcastle's first game of the NBL is against Illawarra on the 12th of April.
Meet Mark, David and Gary. Mark Williams, the hand balancer, is married to the youngest of three sisters, Pearl, the ticket seller. David Meacham, originally from a South African circus family, is the juggler. He's married to the oldest sister, Rosita. Their daughter is following in the circus tradition. And clown Gary Brophy, who comes from a long line of Australian circus artists, is married to Caroline, the equestrian. Toward the end of last year, all three families were looking for work. They also had a dream of staying together and doing something on their own. Within weeks, they gathered the essentials of a small circus: big top, seating, some horses. They made props and sewed costumes. Their dream became a reality on the Central Coast when Circus Sunrise opened at a shopping centre for the holidays. David says their circus is different from others touring Australia.
We have a high-skilled quality show. We try and give the people a show that they'd expect to see in a theatre. We've got a plate spinner, and we've got an excellent hand balancer. That's me. Does handstands and plays the trumpet while standing upside down.
What about me?
We've got great clowns, excellent clowns.
Number one.
A girl on the trapeze, which is one of our wives. The clown's wife.
The Lake Macquarie garbage collector noticed the spill on Lakeview Road. He reported the find to the Wanji Bushfire Brigade, who investigated along with the Newcastle Hazardous Material Unit. What they found was a 5-litre drum of insecticide, which had apparently fallen from a truck. Nearby residents were asked to close their doors and windows and remain inside their homes. The road was closed while the spill was cleaned up. Favourable wind conditions prevented toxic fumes from spreading to the residential area.
Up to now we've had no problems with the breeze. If the wind picks up, which it is expected to do shortly, we could have had problems with the odour getting around the area, and we would have had to consider moving some of the residents from their houses.
The driver who found the insecticide was taken to the John Hunter Hospital for a routine check.
He has since been transported to hospital for precautionary tests, just to ensure that he hasn't had any direct contact with the substance.
Firefighters equipped with air tanks in protective suits used hydrated lime to neutralise the substance before cleaning it off the road.
So what we've done, we've hit it with hydrated lime, as per manufacturer instructions.
Yep.
All right. And we've arranged with council to take to landfill.
The substance will be buried in a nearby landfill site. Meanwhile, fire crews and the Hazardous Materials Unit were called to another chemical spill at the Tyes Hill TAFE this afternoon. A leak was discovered in 5 drums held in a chemical storage area inside the Clegg building, sparking fears of a possible explosion if the different chemicals mixed. Wearing protective gas suits, the firefighters assessed the situation. Luckily, none of the chemicals had mixed and they were able to contain the spill, placing the leaking drums in sealed bins. Emma Ossian, NBN News.
While this may look like an ordinary paddock, it's a dam being suffocated by the salvinia weed. The plant grows at an amazing rate.
takes only one leaf of salvinia and one whole summer will cover an area of this dam.
The South American species is creating havoc in waterways throughout the state. Now Wyong Council is calling on New South Wales Agriculture to help control the outbreak on the Central Coast. Its weapon, the Salvinia weevil, a small black bug about the size of an ant, which burrows into the plant, with its larvae eating the root system.
Immediately this Salvinia sinks, you'll have all your frogs back, bird life will be back.
After successful trials in Maxville on the north coast, the bug is being released in 20 heavily infested local dams, a biological cure hailed as the answer to toxic chemicals. Landowners with Salvinia weed problems are being urged to contact Wyong Council. Sarah Griffiths, NBN News.
With Newcastle's decaying West End seen as heading towards being a red light zone, concerned business operators today ran an ad calling for a halt to such developments. That sparked an immediate response from the Lord Mayor, who now does concede a moratorium is a good idea.
We hadn't thought of a moratorium until it was suggested by the West End Group, so we are responding to that pressure. And I've asked the staff to come forward with a report as to how we could look at reasonably delaying legitimate development applications.
But in a strip where lease signs almost outnumber traders, the reality is the council may be able to do little to prevent the sex industry moving in if it meets planning guidelines.
It's going to be an extraordinary aspect of the development that would mean that we'd knock it back.
The development application for a large-scale sex shop on this site, where ironically the tenant was once the Labor Party itself, comes before the council at the end of the month. If it can be delayed, the Mayor wants the council's whole planning approach examined, conceding even that the best answer ultimately could be the creation of a specific red light area for the sex industry. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.
News that NBN will cover Super League games on Monday nights has been embraced in the Mariners camp. Monday night games have proven amongst the most popular with television viewers. The Mariners hope those viewing trends continue, raising both the team's and Super League's profile in Newcastle.
Well, given the fact that Channel 9 have a great reputation for covering rugby league and sport generally, I think it can probably only help us in that if a game showcased on a Monday night, both locally and within Australia, is certainly going to help our profile.
But the Knights say they have the ammunition to take on Super League and the Mariners head-on the same network.
We maintain we have the best competition with the best teams, and we're going to be in direct opposition to Super League on the same channel. I'm looking forward to it.
Both camps also agree that the new deal could be a move towards peace in the code.
This is a possible move in that direction. At least two of the three participants are talking. The other one, of course, is Optus, who are so very heavily behind us.
Blake Doyle, NBN News.
The placings 1, 5 and 6, Franco Lotsmore paid $3.50 and $1.50. Number 5, Jan's Fella returning $1.80 and the Akuna Matata $1.40. The Quinella $11.50 and the Trifecta $40.60.
"44-year-old Robert Gibbons takes over the $150,000 a year post from outgoing GM Bill Grant, dumped just 4 months short of completing his contract. His replacement is a 20-year public service veteran, but is new to local government.
Well, I've worked with local government in a number of portfolios, such as transport, and I think I can make a contribution here. And obviously the council agreed.
Council critics have labelled the appointment as the final move in a purge of senior officials associated with the previous council.
I don't see it as a purge. We have to continually improve ourselves. Look, there's still a lot that this council needs to do.
Mr Gibbons' first official function, a meeting with Lord Mayor Greg Hees to begin mapping out priorities. He's flagged environmental and economic sustainability as his primary goals. However, his first task will be to mend bridges with backers of the former GM, such as the local Chamber of Commerce.
I'm looking forward to meeting them. They don't know me.
Meanwhile, the council has released its own analysis of the coalition government's first federal budget. The regional impact statement finds funding cuts have cost 31 full-time jobs and more than 3,000 training places for local unemployed.
What happens in Canberra is that people in Canberra making policy decisions, making cuts on the run, don't think about the impact in regional Australia.
The report will be circulated to local politicians and business groups. Phil Hind, NBN News.
Channel 9's announcement they'll broadcast Super League matches this season is perhaps the first step in the rebuilding of rugby league. While it's difficult to predict, officials from both camps think it will eventually lead to the return of a one-tiered competition.
On balance, you'd have to think that sometime in the short term, say 2 or 3 years, we may see a compromise with one competition.
The developments that have taken place in Sydney over the last fortnight, one would assume that there will be some changes in the 1998 competition.
But how that competition will operate draws quite different responses. The Knights say Newcastle's support will be the telling factor in them getting the green light, while the Mariners think they're on top. Knowing there's little they can do to influence the future of the game, both camps are now focusing on the year ahead, but those talks of compromises and mergers are back.
Newcastle is a surf town, and it's the future, and when you go down the beach you don't want to be stepping on soft rocks.